Hello and welcome to this video, Introduction to Storage Services. As part of this video, you're going to learn about different types of storage services offered by AWS. We'll start with Amazon S3. So S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. It's basically a block storage where you save your files. So if you want to understand what is Amazon S3, you can imagine it is something similar to Google Drive. So on your Google Drive, you store your files, right? So same is Amazon S3. So you can create a bucket using Amazon S3 and store your files in that bucket. So Amazon S3 is also called as block storage because it's creating blocks where you can store your files, and those blocks are called as buckets. Now, if you want to store your data at low cost, which you don't frequently access, you can use Amazon Simple Storage Service Glacier. So instead of using standard class of S3, you can use a Glacier class and you can store your data in a less costly storage. So if you're using Amazon S3 Glacier, you're storing your data in less costly storage. Now what is Amazon Elastic Block Store? So you must be using a hard disk in your laptop, right? That hard disk is nothing but a EBS if it goes on cloud. Now you can imagine you are running a compute or a server on cloud. Now that compute or that server requires a hard disk. So hard disk on the cloud, on Amazon cloud, is called as EBS, Elastic Block Store. So what you're doing is basically you're attaching a hard disk to your compute. That is what you're doing. So how are you creating this hard disk, or how it's getting created? It's getting created with this service, Amazon Elastic Block Store. Next is AWS Snowball. So Amazon Web Service Snowball is basically a device that you can use for copying the data from your on-premise system and send that Snowball device back to the Amazon team, and they will upload the data on your behalf to the AWS Cloud Storage. So it's kind of a device which basically you can take from AWS, or you can sign a contract and they'll send you the Snowball device, which you'll connect to your on-prem hardware, and you'll copy the data into it and send it back to the AWS, and they'll upload that data onto the cloud. Next is Amazon Elastic File System. Now, if you want a network storage, so how you have seen EBS, Elastic Block Store, so that is something similar like a hard disk to your laptop, right? Now, what if you want a hard disk that will be common across all your laptops? So you can imagine on cloud, you want a storage that you can access from all the servers. In that case, you can store these files in an Elastic File System. So you can spin up and create an Elastic File System, and you can store the files to this Elastic File System, and from all your servers, you can access the file from this Elastic File System. So it's like your network storage, a storage which is at a network level. All the devices connected to the network can access this Elastic File System storage. Then is AWS Storage Gateway, which is like a secure connection between your on-prem and your cloud. Let's see next slides. So as you have seen, S3 Simple Storage Service, we create buckets and then we can upload objects to it. So using S3, we can create buckets, which is nothing but blocks, and in that blocks, we can store files. So you can upload any objects. So objects are nothing but files. Object can be any file of any type. It can be a text file, it can be a JSON file, it can be any file. And size of the bucket is theoretically unlimited. But there is a quota, specific quota. You can see the default quotas on the AWS documentation. And what is Glacier? Glacier is a cheap storage. So Glacier is a cheap storage option offered by AWS. It is used for long-term archival of data. Whatever data you don't want to frequently access, you can store it in the Glacier storage. You can also create lifecycle rules which will automatically move data from your Amazon S3 standard bucket to the Glacier type of storage. So that you can do for files that you're not frequently accessing, or if you want to automate this process. Let's say you've created a file 3 months ago, and after 3 months that file becomes redundant, but still you want to keep it for some compliance purpose in your company. Then in that case, you can write a lifecycle rule which will pick up that file and move it to a cheap storage, which is Glacier storage. EBS, you understand, it's nothing but kind of a hard disk for your server. So it is highly available, low latency block storage. It is basically meant for being attached to servers launched using Amazon Web Services EC2 service. Basically, EC2 service helps you to create EC2 instances. These instances are nothing but a server on the cloud, a compute on the cloud. For that compute, if you require a storage, hard disk kind of a storage, then you attach a EBS to it, and you have to attach a EBS for every EC2 you create, because the OS of your EC2 instance resides in the EBS. Then that's the third point. It is same as attaching a hard drive to your computer at home. EFS is a network attached storage. If you want a storage which all your computes can access over a connected network, if all the computes are connected over same network, and this EFS is also in the same network, and if they want to access this EFS, they can access also computes in different network. You can do VPC peering and all the different stuff on cloud to enable connectivity. So there are multiple things, and since it's a network attached storage, it allows single data source from multiple servers. As I mentioned, you can have 3 compute machines on the AWS cloud, and you can have a common storage by using EFS. So you can store the files in EFS, and all the compute machines can access this common storage. So it is a single data source from multiple servers created using Amazon EC2. So basically you can create a EFS, and you can store files from different compute in that EFS, or read files from different compute servers in that EFS. Then you have storage gateway. So it enables hybrid storage, that is mix of on-premise environment and AWS cloud. So as I mentioned, it's a gateway. It's a connection between on-prem and your cloud. So it provides low latency performance by caching frequently used data on-premise. Basically, it's like you have some storage on-premise, some storage on cloud. It's a connection between the both. What it will do is whatever data you're frequently accessing, it will store it in your on-premise hardware, and what you're less frequently accessing, it will keep that data on the cloud storage. That is how you'll have low latency. Basically, you'll have low latency and high performance. Low latency means you can quickly, your compute servers can quickly read that data or write to that files, whichever you are accessing from your on-prem, because your on-prem is near you. Let's say if I have a server beside me and laptop over here. So in that case, if I'm connected to that server, if I have a physical connection, I can quickly store data and retrieve data, rather than compared to the connection over the internet where the server would reside in a far location from me. And Snowball. Snowball is like a petabyte scale data transport service. Now, if you understand megabyte MB, so then you understand GB also, gigabyte. Now 1024 GB is like 1 terabyte, and 1000 terabyte is 1 petabyte. That is the petabyte scale. Okay, that is the petabyte scale. So Snowball, basically this hardware Snowball device is a petabyte scale data transport service. It is used for migrating large amounts of data from on-premise environment to cloud environment. You simply download data to Snowball device for sending it off by courier to AWS. So basically you rent this Snowball device from AWS, you store data into it, and you send it back to AWS team. They will upload the data onto the cloud storage on your behalf. Basically, you'll send them the device and they'll upload that data on your behalf. So you don't have to worry about how will I migrate this data. So you can imagine, you can take this diagram. This is a use case diagram, dedicated storage volume EBS. So you can, for now, you can imagine all these server and this EFS is in the same, this is in the same VPC, in the same network. And so individual servers will have a hard disk attached to it. So that hard disk is nothing but EBS. This is how it looks. This is one server, it has one EBS attached to it. This is another server, it has another EBS attached to it. So whatever data this server is storing in this EBS, this server cannot access, because this server is not attached to this EBS. One EBS can be attached to one server. Then this is the shared storage volume EFS. Now if you want a shared storage, what you can do is, you can see over here, this is the Amazon EFS, Elastic File Store, and file storage basically. And this server is connecting to this EFS by EFS bound target, and this server is also connecting to this Amazon EFS using this EFS mount target. Now both the servers have this common storage, so both the servers can store some data in their hard disk if they want to, and if they want to share data across different servers, they can store that data in the Amazon EFS. This is how the on-prem storage backup in cloud looks like. So let's say your company is migrating data from on-premise to the AWS S3 bucket. So this is your on-site storage. This is your on-premise storage basically. On-premise means in your company premises you have the hardware where you're storing the data, and this is the AWS Storage Gateway for bridging the gap between the cloud storage and your on-premise storage, and for accessing the data on your premise and in the AWS S3 bucket with low latency. So whatever data is frequently accessed will be stored in your on-premise storage, and whatever data is less frequently accessed will be stored in the S3 bucket if you have connected AWS Storage Gateway. So this is enabling that low latency access. Basically, this is the service. AWS Storage Gateway is the service which is helping you to cache the data or store the frequently used data on your on-premise storage and less frequently data in the cloud storage S3 bucket. Now, if your company is planning to migrate all the data from on-premise to the cloud S3 storage, in that case, you can order a Snowball device from Amazon and store all the data into this Snowball device and send it back to the AWS team. They would upload the data from this Snowball device to your S3 bucket on your behalf. So serverless storage S3. So S3 is also called as serverless storage. It's a block storage, and archival storage Glacier. So you can see this complete diagram. You have these servers. This can be your EC2 instances. These are your EC2 instances, and these are the EBS volumes attached to your EC2 instances. Now this EC2 instance can be a Linux server, Ubuntu server, Windows server, any server that you have created. So let's say this is my EC2 instance. This has this EBS attached to it, and this is the common storage for these two servers, EFS. Now if you don't want to manage all these things, what you can do is, if you just simply want a storage, you don't want a server to access that storage, you can simply use Amazon S3. That is why the name serverless storage, because you don't require a EC2 machine to connect to your S3. You can directly create a S3 bucket, and using your VPC, basically by using the UI, you can store the data into it, and you can also archive the data. Basically, that is archive means move the data to a less costly storage option, which is S3 Glacier. So you can store the data in S3 standard by using S3 standard class, or you can move the data from standard class to Glacier class. That is basically if you want to access the data frequently, you can store it directly in the S3 standard bucket, normal bucket. And if you don't want to access it frequently, or if there is some files that you're not accessing frequently, you can manually move to Glacier, or you can write some lifecycle rules in your Amazon S3, which would basically pick those files and move it to Glacier storage. Glacier storage is your less costly storage. It is basically used for archiving your files, or it is used for moving the files that you don't require for your business purpose currently, but you require it for the compliance purpose in your company. So as part of this topic, what you have gained is, you have gained idea about different storage services which are available on AWS. Thank you for watching this video. Please do like my video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.